Let's talk about brain science for a little bit. It's important to talk about brains and science when talking about emotions because our brains are responsible for managing our emotions. This is the learning pathway. For learning and reflection to occur, information has to make it from the reticular activation system through the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. So this is our eyes taking information, our ears taking information, these things that, the teachers at the front of the room talking. This is what is activating the beginning of this learning pathway, the beginning of the learning process. Next, it goes from the attention intake filter and passes through the amygdala. This is kind of like the emotional switching station. In order to make it to the prefrontal cortex, the part where the learning actually occurs, where your memory is, where a lot of your cognition is, it has to make it through this emotion filter. That means that filtering emotions is important and vital to learning. Emotion networks are widespread throughout the brain and intricately connect to the body's physiological systems as well as to higher order cognitive networks. So we're going to look at stress management. If we know that in order to learn, we got to get through that little emotional amygdala, and part of that is managing stress in order to pass through. Alrighty. This is your brain on stress. The information has been received. You are getting input from your eyes, from your ears, from anything your senses are telling you, and it's sending off alarms. Well, this alarm is then activating stress hormones. The hypothalamus releases corticotropin releasing hormones, also known as CRH, which travels to the pituitary gland, triggering the release of adrenocorticotropic hormones, ACTH. This hormone then travels to the adrenal glands, prompting them to release cortisol. Your body is essentially flooded with stress hormones. That means that information does not reach the prefrontal cortex. No learning can occur. Imagine what's happening with our students if they're stressed. Their bodies are being flooded with stress hormones, and it's making body-wide changes, and it's making it so that the information can't reach the prefrontal cortex, and no learning can occur. That's not good for a classroom, any classroom, not just an arts classroom. We need for learning to occur. Elevated levels of cortisol activate the fight, flight, or freeze reflex. These hormones are essentially telling your child's body that they are not safe and they are not secure. We know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that if basic needs like safety are not being met, children cannot focus on learning. Managing stress is really important in the classroom if we want learning to occur. I'd like you to take a moment and reflect about your own practices in your classroom. What strategies have you used in your classroom to help your students manage stress? Please post in the Padlet. You can write about your strategies. You can post pictures. I'll see you after the activity.